Today we're going to talk about simple investing. So let's start off with a very basic example. You invest $1,000 into TRS. TRS is the Teacher Retirement System. So this is what all teachers use instead of Social Security. And TRS guarantees its members a 2.2% return. So let's say that from your very first paycheck, $1,000 was pulled out, and we want to know how much will that $1,000 be worth in 23 years. Well, for simple investing, we're going to go ahead and use our very simplified investing formula, or I'm sorry, exponential formula, a, b to the x, where we know that a is what's going to be our initial amount, and b is our growth or decay rate. In this case, we would hope it would be a growth or decay rate, but we're going to hope that it's a growth rate. Okay, now let's go ahead and talk about how to do this. So we're going to say, all right, you know what, we have f of x. Well, how many years are we going to invest for? We're going to invest for 23 years. Okay, is equal to, and let's say, let's do our initial amount in purple, $1,000. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to find out what our growth rate is in a second. But we're going to do this to, once again, the 23rd power, or for 23 years. Now, how in the world do we find our growth rate? Well, remember, what you have to do is you have to go ahead and take your rate of return, 2.2%, and we're always starting out with 100% plus 2.2%, and that becomes 102.2%. Well, how do I change this to a decimal? I take my decimal and move it 2 places to the left, and I have 1.022. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our Desmos scientific calculator. Alright, Desmos. I'll shrink it down for us, so we're here in the problem. And we're going to go ahead, and we're going to say, oh, I'm sorry, guys. Oh, goodness. This will teach me to not have this prepped and ready. Y'all give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. Alright, so we type in 1,000, parentheses. We'll put 1.022, close parentheses, click A to the B, and we're going to see how much that's going to be worth 23 years from now. And the answer is it'll be worth $1,649. $1,649 and 57 cents. 57 cents. Now, you want to ask yourself, is that a good investment? And the way that you'll do that is you'll think, okay, well, I invested back then and now it's worth this much. And the question you should always ask is, how much money did you make? Well, that's pretty easy. All we have to do is our $1,649.57 minus our original $1,000, and we'll see that, hey, over that 23-year time period, we made $649.57. Now, is that a good or bad investment? Well, I'm going to let you compare that to some things here in a moment. Let's move on to example 2. Okay, let's look at example 2. You invest $1,000 in Apple at a 76.71% rate of return. How much would that $1,000 be in 10 years? So here's going to be the first time that we kind of look at stocks. So this is actually Apple right now, and this is in my Robinhood bank account, and we can actually kind of look at time periods down here in the bottom. So you can say, okay, for this one day, the one stock of Apple is sitting at $127.75, and you can see that today it actually lost 3.47%. We can see that over 1 week it lost 4.87%. We can see that over 1 month it gained 2.36%. Here's for 3 months, and here's for 1 year. Now, you want to ask yourself, what happened roughly a year ago? Well, guys, roughly a year ago, the stock market crashed due to the coronavirus. And so if you had invested your money in 1 year ago, today, you would have made a 76.7% return. A moment ago, it was 76.71%. So what if you were able to keep this rate of return, 76.71, What if you were able to keep that for 10 years? What would your $1,000 be like 10 years from now? Let's set this up. We'll say, okay, f of 10, because we're looking at 10 years. We're investing initially $1,000. And wait a second, what is 100 plus 76.71? Well, that's 176.71%. And we move that 2 decimal places to the left, so we're going to put this at 1.7671 raised to the 10th power. So let's go find out, what would your $1,000 be worth 10 years later at this consistent rate of return. Okay, so we go to our Desmos scientific calculator, and we're going to just go ahead and delete this. 0.7176, I think. Oh, 7671. 7671. And we're going to, once again, we're going to do this for 10 years. And notice, at that rate of return, your $1,000 would be worth $296,976. If Apple kept that rate of return year in and year out, that's what you'd have. Now, how are we going to determine how much money did we make? Well, we subtract off our initial amount of that $1,000, and it turns out that over the 10 years, you would have made $295,900.76. Okay, well, so that's cool. That's really, really cool. However, this is actually not realistic. The reason that we had such a high growth rate was because the stock market just completely crashed last year. And so you're looking at it essentially from the bottom, raised up to the top over 1 year. That's very abnormal. So let's go ahead and look at a much more realistic example. Okay, so here's our example 3. You invest $1,000 in Chevron for 10 years at a 19.55% return. Okay, so we're going to once again look at this over 10 years. We're going to invest our initial $1,000. And of course, this is 1.1955. You should be able to do that by yourself. Okay, and we're going to invest this for 10 years. So, guys, y'all can look at Chevron right here. Chevron grew at 19.55% over this last year. And by the way, you can even look long term. You can see what it did over the past 5 years. All right, but we're going to look at 1 year rates of growth. That's easier, 19.55. And let's see what that looks like. All right, and you'll see here that over 10 years, your $1,000 only grew to $5,963.43. Okay, so wait a second. In our very first example, our $1,000 didn't grow very much. Over 23 years, it only grew by like $600. And in our second example, over 10 years, our $1,000 grew by 500, or by, what was it, like 200 or 200 something thousand dollars. It was a ridiculous amount. And here in a much more realistic example, our amount, we subtract off our initial $1,000 and we say, you know what, it grew by $4,963.44. Now that's even more on the high side than what the real percent interest rate is. The real growth rate that you can expect is actually 7.7%. And you're going to see that in that video that we're about to watch. Guys, I would encourage you to watch the entire video.